and other partners that we have in the community, we are going to involve them as well. So today, Kathy is going to present to you what we have done thus far with the intention and the goal for the board to approve our strategic planning for the two-year bridge in August during our board meeting. So Kathy will go through our presentation.
So the boards that are here behind me, these were presented at Summer Institute, and they are a product of 4 sessions that we had. So each board had their own work session, and we met 3 times for each board with faculty and staff across the college. And really, the conversation was started just by introducing the 4, what at the time we called pillars, and asking everyone what that meant to them at SUNY Erie, what they wanted that to mean to SUNY Erie, what it meant in their day-to-day practice as they serve the community here at the college, and potential metrics that we could use to assess our attainment of our goals. So as we worked our way through that, we had determined, since we were using the bridge metaphor, that we thought that instead of pillars, these are foundational principles of SUNY Erie. So student success and empowerment, diversity, equity, and belonging, economic development and upward mobility for students, and institutional sustainability. And institutional sustainability is sort of that bedrock. If without that, everything else can't function. So you'll see it in the bottom of that. So just to take you through some of the discussions that were had across campus as we talked about each of those foundational principles, I'm going to start with student success and empowerment. And this real discussion came about the student. How do we help our students attain their goals? Are they transferring? Are they going into job placement? Are they possibly coming to SUNY Erie to take 1 or 2 classes and move on to their other goals? How are we providing access? And when we talk about access, we've been talking about providing the right modality and the right academic content in student services. So making sure that it's appropriate to the student, appropriate to their needs, and appropriate to the way in which they want to engage the college, whether that is virtually or in person at our 3 locations. How do we help our students build connections? How are we doing that on campus with engagement with our faculty and staff? And how are we building a sense of community within the school? And are we truly meeting the students where they are and helping them get to where they want to be? How do we provide students what they need, not necessarily what they want, right? We're an educational institution, and sometimes what students think they want might not be the best academically for them, in terms of maybe virtual class isn't really the best way to learn the content of a specific course. So maybe we need to help them understand why seated would be better for this content. Or perhaps it's talking through financial aid a little bit more in depth with the student to make sure they're filling out that paperwork, because they might not want to in the moment, but they should for their long-term goals. So then we broke down from there, and we looked at what the opportunities for improvement would be. And when we did this, it was just, again, a very organic conversation with everyone in the room, talking about each of those 4 kind of overarching themes. And some of the conversation that came up was tracking the students' intention and what that goal was when they started out with us. So currently, some of our metrics are based on first-time, full-time enrollment and making sure that those students have success. But when we admit our students as a community college in SUNY, we're required to ask what the student's goal is. So we actually have metrics that could show us that that student didn't intend to finish at SUNY Erie, they only intended to come for 1 or 2 classes. So we can actually see if we were able to provide that student with what they came for, or did they potentially drop out before they finished, and then why. We can identify that. We wanted to lean more into our guided pathways model. One thing that came up with faculty...
Excuse me, Kathy, just to clarify that last point. So what you're trying to drill down on here is the notion that some students come here without the intention of completing
Correct.
2 years and getting a degree
Yes.
or a certificate.
Yep.
And we would typically beat ourselves up over that student's departure. Oh, we didn't get there to
Yes.
the finish line.
Exactly.
And we're looking to be more specific about that.
A little bit more specific, but not so caught in the weeds. The one thing I want to clarify there is that first-time, full-time completion is still a federal metric that we will utilize, and it is one that we should be very committed to improving. But we also need to recognize that as former faculty, I can tell you that when I received metrics about my program and I saw first-time, full-time success rates of my students, and not fully understanding at the time as faculty, I didn't quite know what first-time, full-time meant. And we didn't really have a dictionary that was given to us to understand what those things meant, but it didn't match what I saw in my classroom every day. So hearing those negative metrics was really affected the way I felt my product was working in the classroom. So I want to make sure that we're being a little bit more accurate in the depiction of all of the students' experiences at the college, and not just that cohort of first-time, full-time students. So when we're looking at some of the other things, I'll just quickly go through some of these. Opening remote and off-hour service models, making sure that our offices that are student-facing keep their doors open, answer their phones, return calls, working through a better onboarding of students, whether it's through a more engaging orientation, or if it's through the student information system, Workday, and making sure that the milestones that were set in the system actually have stopgap measures. So if a student decides to ignore them, someone is tapping their shoulder and saying, hey, you didn't finish your FAFSA. Hey, you didn't do the following. And we can work with that student to help them get to their end goals. And then some foundational skills we felt that we needed to provide to students that we aren't doing across the board, depending on the student's experience in the program that they might come to. We want to make sure that we're giving them time management skills, that we're helping them to understand the process of academic standards and rigor that they may need when they move on to their next institution. And so then at the bottom of these boards and this slide will tell you about potential metrics that we were discussing. So we want to look at that first-time, full-time. We want to increase it by 2.5% over the next 2 years of this project. This is linked to our Title III grant initiative that we just submitted. And then we want to also include our 2-year completion. So retention, I talked about retention. So 2.5% increase of retention from our baseline of 56.8%. And we would like to improve our 2-year completion of our first-time, full-time students by 3%. Currently, it's 18.2%. And that gets incredibly interesting when we break those numbers down by demographics. So that 3% over 2 years is for the entire cohort, and we have specific goals for each demographic in those areas as well. They're not on the screen, but we can provide those. We want to reduce our seat capacity for our gatekeeper courses. We've identified that our students in our English and our math classes are performing better in smaller cohorts and with specific teaching methodology administered in the classroom. And we're working to reduce the seats in our English classes from 25 down to 15. And our 3 gatekeeper English classes are EN 100, 101, and 102. So we looked at the cost-benefit analysis of reducing those cap sizes, and the cost to the college would be seen in the retention gains immediately.
Kathy, just a quick question. What are the names of those courses?
English composition, I believe, is the EN 100, or college. Eric, do you remember EN 100? I always get that wrong.
It's the one for the humanities, and 102 is for STEM.
Okay.
No, 100.
100, composition.
College
composition.
And then EN 101 and 102 are humanities and STEM writing.
Okay.
And then we have 7 gatekeeper math classes that we identified, and we are looking to reduce the seats from 34 to 25 and increase seat time in those classes, removing the independent developmental sections that we had in the past. So it will be embedded in those courses, helping those students improve.
So co-requisites?
We are in a co-rec model now, yes, and we're expanding that to include all seats.
Got it. So the 7 courses, Can you tell me what the names of those courses are?
Not off the top of my head, but I can provide them for you.
Thanks.
Yeah. We
Well,
want to.
just on that question, are you thinking about, do they have disparaging names or anything like that? Or
No.
what's the point of the question?
So the reason for the question is I'm just wondering if it's like a prerequisite, is it a 100-level course like a
They're
college?
100-level courses.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Whether or not they were developmental courses or not.
They aren't originally developmental courses. They are all seated classes. Some of them had co-recs built into them based on their section, but we're going to have them all be infused with a developmental model.
Nice.
I'm sorry. What does it mean to be a developmental course?
So if you're not academically prepared to start in college level
I see.
classes,
Okay. Thank you.
So what I was trying to figure out if it was like college algebra, pre-calc, introduction to
all of those.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah, stats, and then intro to calc. And there's a movement nationwide, and I know that SUNY Erie has also been a part of working with Strong Start to Finish to eliminate developmental courses. A lot of states have eliminated them, period, because what we found is a student who goes into a prerequisite course, non-credit course essentially, they have a 10% chance of graduating. So I was wondering if these courses were prerequisite, if they were developmental, because a lot of colleges are eliminating them. One of the challenges that I've seen across the country is that some colleges have taken those developmental courses as like an 097, usually is the number of it, and they've just turned it into a 100 level course, and the trajectory stays the same, so the outcome stays the same. But if a student is put directly into a co-requisite, as the model is here, which is fantastic, they have a 40% chance more likelihood of graduating.
Okay.
So co-requisites are the way to go.
And again, just to understand that, so co-requisite would mean the developmental
It-
course, but with the.
It's a combination
With the-
course,
okay.
and it can look like a few different things. It will look like a traditional college level math course with maybe a workshop or some remedial supports built into the course,
right.
so that the student is still supported, but they can still get credit.
Okay.
And that was extremely problematic because without the college level credit, it was eating up financial
Yes.
aid,
Yeah.
which heavily
I can
affected underrepresented students.
Mhm.
So underrepresented students, they were either like dropping out because they didn't have enough money left in their financial aid, or just because they couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Either way, co-requisites is the way to go.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
And we found a difference in the model between our English and math classes and the student performance. So the plan gets a little specific to both English and math, so that we are making sure that the successes that we saw in those are being represented with the plan moving forward. So the successes we saw in English, we're continuing that model, and the successes we saw in math, we're continuing that model. And they were different between our English and our
Oh, yeah.
math.
Big time.
So to do this, it's going to require some professional development for our faculty. Not all of our faculty have been teaching in the developmental space. So we've had some requests from faculty to make sure that they're prepared to teach in this new model as we're moving forward. So we'll be working to address that, and you can see those in the black bubbles on here. And then incorporating foundational learning skills in first term student classes, and also working through student service communication. So students are aware of all of the services that the college provides. Because it's not common that all students are exposed to the same services across campus, and we want to make sure that there's an equitable introduction to those services for everyone.
What portion of our students are in the developmental classes?
So since we don't necessarily have a standalone developmental model, I would not be able to answer that right now. We haven't had a standalone developmental model for math and probably, what would you say, since COVID for both of those. So those students are taking, they're already in these infused classes, and I'd have to break those sections down, and I haven't really done that. I think Dave had some metrics on there. Do you remember by any chance, Adrian?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. I think it was like around the 20% range at now, but it used to be a lot higher. So I need to look at that for you. Because we still do have standalone developmental classes for students who are very underprepared. And I think the number I'm giving you right now is for those,
And
around 10 to 20%.
those students spread out all three campuses.
Correct. Yep. So our next foundational practice is diversity, equity, and belonging. And that conversation, all the metrics you're asking for will be in the final plan. This was just an overview today, so I apologize that I don't have those on the top of my head today. Diversity, equity, and belonging. In this conversation, we talked again about helping students attain their goal. We're an open enrollment institution. I love this quote. One of our faculty members said this. As an open enrollment institution, it is incumbent upon us to make people better when they leave. So talking really about the ethical responsibility we have to students who walk in our door at first and making sure that we've helped them attain their goals. Making sure that access is equitable. So one of the other comments was that inequality is often a function of access. So we want to make sure that students have equitable access to all services and campuses. Making sure students feel like they belong. So what is student success versus the student experience?
I got a quick question.
Mhm.
How do colleges, is there a general way that colleges define themselves as open enrollment?
Erickson can talk to that, I think.
Yeah, in terms of the admissions requirement, so with regards to here, as long as students have a high school diploma, they are eligible, as well as high school equivalency, I should say, eligible to enter into then our institution. Unlike other institutions that will have a specific requirement for admittance into the institution or evaluative committee, here we make sure that we accept all students that again have a high school diploma or high school equivalency into the institution.
And now where it gets different is the programs, right? Depending on what program.
That's what I was
So- yes.
getting
So
to.
there is a second step to that, right? So students could come into the college, it's open access, but if they want to go into some health sciences as well as in engineering, those there are specific requirement. Some of it is college-based and some of it is a credential requirement. So that's an area that we have an opportunity to look at. Part of what Kathy is doing is again presenting this to the board, but the next step after we present is to send it to the board with questionnaire for you to give us feedback. So there's a lot here that's still missing that we want to incorporate. So part of what we're going to do today is give you sort of the overview, but follow it up with the presentation as well as questionnaire for you to give us feedback and how we can enhance each of those areas. So there'll be opportunity.
And yeah, push us to think in a different
Yes,
way if
yes,
necessary.
please.
And
That's where,
just,
for nomenclature, we'll call those the competitive programs. So if you ever hear us talk about those are the ones that'll have those specific admission requirements.
right, because like when I hear open enrollment, it sounds like, oh, fantastic. If I have a high school diploma, I can
Yes.
apply into the health sciences
Yes.
program.
Yes.
And that's not the case, or this particular program, or that particular program. And those particular programs are not necessarily open enrollment. So I was just wondering how open enrollment is defined, if there are certain
Right.
programs that you can get
That's
into
right.
and certain programs that you can't. Is it really open enrollment? I don't know. So I don't know. I'm not I'm not an expert on that.
Would there be some
So-
sort of standardized? Test.
So Erickson really talked about the standard kind of process here, and we have to file an ability to benefit report every year that it asserts the student's ability to participate in the college level work. Each program on our website will articulate what their requirements are for admission. So broadly speaking, the college is considered open enrollment.
I just
As
feel
an
like it needs, like,
institution.
an asterisk.
Mhm.
And I think it's,
with a little star.
if you went through the website, you would see that it's kind of clearly, like, we don't advertise, I don't think, anywhere that we're open enrollment institution. It's just the legal terminology of the college as a whole. But students with a high school diploma can be admitted into the school and can
And be-
make their way to those programs. But they, I see what you're saying about those competitive programs. They are articulated on the website that they're competitive.
But
And
just a broad, we're open enrollment, except for our competitive programs. It just, I don't know, it just feels like an asterisk or something, like,
It does. I agree.
that's all. I'm gonna-
Yeah. So, and then we want to talk, so belonging, student belonging versus.
Cameron, did you have a question on this?
Oh, I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
did. I kind of wanted to like ask was she saying like open enrollment? Now, after they do open enrollment, do they take a standardized test?
So, again, I'm going to defer to
Yeah.
Erickson to talk about our placement test.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
and so with regards to our placement processes that are in our catalog, since the pandemic, we've utilized strongly high school GPA as a strong indicator of then course placement into our English and math classes. Students that may have a GPA that doesn't place them into them have the option to take the placement test to be able to challenge the outcomes of that placement process, and so we use AccuPlacer. And then students in which, as Kathy highlighted, that may not have either identified on the application as English is not their primary language, there's additional opportunities for them to take what's called English as an additional language placement test to help them in terms of where their English placement may be. And then following the ATP regulations, so those that don't have those requirements have the ability then to take this test. We have 2 measures that are used that are approved by the state, and if they pass those, there's the ability to come in. So the idea of open enrollment is to highlight that there's an institution within your geographical region in which you are able to access as a resource to obtain that educational outcome. And while there are specific programs within the institution that may have additional requirements, you as an individual, as long as you meet these requirements, have a home with us. And that's what's indicative of the open enrollment.
Okay, just one more question. So a student who doesn't perform on the standardized test, doesn't meet grade or whatever that level is, are they automatically directed to development courses?
That's what, yes, correct. In terms of our ERP system, that's what then they get placed into, and then that goes into what they're able to be registered for.
So they're given that opportunity to improve through.
Yes. Yep.
That's correct.
Yep,
Okay.
we have a
And
program
there's-
available for that.
Yeah.
We have 2 different programs available for students who might not, depending on their threshold on that test, they're recommended in 1 or 2 different pathways.
I just have one other quick question about the developmental courses. So at this point, all of your developmental courses are defined by co-requisites, so they're
The
credit-bearing
majority of
courses?
them are.
So
We
you
have
still have
2,
none?
we have, I think, 2 math and 1 English that are standalone for students who may not be ready to even do the co-rec. And we have very few students in those at this point in time,
Got it.
but they're still available.
Are you planning to phase those courses out?
We're looking at the opportunity to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that they're still left on our books has a lot to do with the COVID loss that we're experiencing with students' education loss during COVID. And we don't want to remove them completely if there are students who can benefit from them still.
Got it. I can send you a few research papers, one done in the CUNY system by Alexa Logue, I don't know if you're familiar with her, about the co-requisite model. And they found that students, even underperforming students, will do much better in a co-requisite than a developmental course. And California, Tennessee, and a few other states have completely eliminated it. So it is now against the law for students to be forced to take developmental courses in those particular states because the data behind it is so strong about what outcomes look like. Students might need those courses, but even if they're put in a higher level course, they tend to rise to the level of the course and do much better. But those developmental courses, the non-credit ones, are the ones that a lot of states are like looking at.
I believe our goal is to get there, yes.
To supplement that as well, we do offer what's called our pre-collegiate classes, which are non-credit, non-tuition. So these would be what's considered remedial. It doesn't cost the student anything. They're able to take that at 3 different times throughout the year, summer, fall, and spring. Again, no cost, it does not affect their financial aid eligibility. And that is a great way to also pair that with placement tests so that students can take that after having this intervention to help in terms of setting them up for that credit-bearing success.
Yes, so I've looked at a lot of those classes too. I've done a ton of research on them, and what I find is underrepresented minorities are more likely to underplace themselves into those courses because they do not feel that they're ready for the other courses. So a large push is to take these courses off the books in general, so that if I don't feel confident, specifically women, they'll put themselves in these courses, whether it's tuition or credit bearing or not, because they just don't feel like I'm good enough in math. And as a result, their graduation date just gets further and further.
Trajectory takes longer.
Right. So it's when we really looked at what's going on with all these, extra enrichment or supplemental courses, we're finding specifically women and underrepresented minorities do not have confidence for whatever reason in their math identity or whatever identity so they'll put themselves in this course, and it's just kind of like this never-ending cycle, and they don't. And then if you get into a developmental math course, you're extremely unlikely to get into a STEM field, which creates lucrative opportunities and sustainable jobs. So these courses, even the ones that don't cost tuition, still really harm students in terms of graduation.
I can relate 100% to that, because I was told by my high school guidance counselor that my math skills would never let me be an architect. So
Wow.
That's
what I'm.
Yeah, so I 100% understand where you are with that, and I'm happy to announce I am an architect, and she was sent a copy of my license.
Yes.
This is a pretty interesting discussion, I think, because on one hand, these courses were created at some point, theoretically, for a reason. And on the surface, at least, you could say to yourself, it's good that we have cost-free, non-financial aid impacting classes that help students who aren't ready get ready. But I think your point is that they may think they're not ready, but they may be able to be more ready than they realize.
That's
Correct.
what these prerequisites
This
are for.
comes down to studies, and I'm sure there are people who wash out of those classes, or the classes that you would wish them to be in, that we would. So, I don't know, this is just an interesting discussion. My overall thought as I'm listening to this is I'm delighted to be talking about these subjects instead of, financial exigencies and, the difficulties that we've had.
Well,
for the last
remember,
several
the
years.
foundation of our bridge plan is institutional sustainability.
Yes.
So it might come up. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I'm enjoying this part of the conversation.
So one other thing, the developmental, like you said, those 3 courses that you still have left, the standalones, the developmental ones, those do cost tuition.
They do.
Right, so those are the ones
Yeah,
that
no,
are.
I do understand that. And my first reaction when Erickson was describing, by the way, I thought that was a good explanation of open enrollment that we can all take away. But when Erickson started talking about those that don't impact financial aid, my first reaction was a positive one, to say, oh, good. There's a chance to prep, get ready, be in a harder course eventually, stay here, be ready, more prepared, have that bridge from high school to college. But then, your point that it's a self-selecting thing too, and it can go to confidence. On the other hand, I think we have to guard against saying everybody's just fine. Go right into that first class
There
hope
needs
for the
to be
best.
a scaffolded approach to removing those classes from our books, and part of it will include pedagogy in classroom experience.
That's the most important thing.
That's right. That's right.
At the end of the day, it's pedagogy.
Yeah.
So you can put a student who might not be prepared into a class that they're, again, not prepared for, but because of instruction and the support that is given, those students can thrive.
Yeah, the support.
And- right.
And part of that was when we started we saw some of the reductions in class size that were proposed. Now that's different than having the program that graduates only one person. We do have to look at that.
Right.
We have to figure out, what can we afford to offer and staff, but moving this type of course from 25 to 15, and that course is going to get taught. That's happening. And if it happens, if the outcomes are much better at 15 than 25, we should be doing that.
Oh, absolutely.
Agreed.
Definitely, yeah. And the other thing is those developmental courses, just for context, the reason why a lot of students struggle in them is because they don't have what the higher level courses have. Creative thinking, creative problem solving.
That's right.
They're not engaging. A lot of it is rote memorization, stuff that they've probably already taken before. And they just get in there and they're like, I hate this
They're
class.
bored.
Right. And then they
Right.
think that's what it is.
And that's what I was gonna say. everybody. I did mess up on my Incomp 100 this semester. Like I handed in everything. Like I was doing good. I think I missed like one assignment and I got an F and I failed. And I was like really, but not only that, I was taking AP English in high school. Whatever they were teaching me in the class, I already learned in high school.
Yes.
And it was so confusing because I was in high school like 3 years ago. So to come back to it, it was just, so I really do agree with what you're saying. Like it's pointless for those for English, especially too when I did all of the work and it wasn't like I was turning in, horrible work. I got 34 out of my final presentation. So,
Wow, that's excellent.
it just, I really do agree with you. Like, I kind of wish I started in the harder course because I don't mind challenging myself.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because if there's something for me to achieve, instead of this is where I'm at,
That's right.
what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. But I really agree with what you're saying.
Thank you.
Thank you for making your point.
Oh, thank you for sharing that example. Those anecdotals really humanize the conversation that we're having.
Right.
So it's
Yes,
it's
this is
it's so important. But that's exactly
Yeah, and this
what
is
it
my
is.
first semester at UCC too. So
Confidence goes up,
Yeah.
sense of belonging, sense of like utility in particular areas. When you're placed in that college level course, you rise to the occasion essentially. And then what you're talking about, Jeff, you don't want to just throw someone out there. That's what the co-requisite is for, which is so nice. Some colleges do it differently. Some offer like workshops after the class or a lab.
Okay.
Some do like a combination. But within those co-requisites, there's also factors like active learning. You might not be familiar with this. This gets technical. Specific student engagement. Things that actually build the culture and the climate of the classroom so that those students thrive. So it's not just teaching the course. Co-requisites, one of the reasons why they are so effective is because student engagement, like effective and bi-directional instruction, is built directly into the class.
Great teaching.
Which
Cameron,
speaks
Cameron
directly
needs a
to
sense
that.
of belonging. He has a
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
strategy. I'll join the board of
just,
trustees.
and
You are
like,
here.
And like I said, I came from, Canisius, and like I said, I was writing annotated bibliographies as a freshman
Yeah.
versus just 4-page essays. I could do that. That's easy. Annotated bibliography is a little bit more challenge for me, which
Very
I enjoy. And another thing too is the instructor. Which is crucial, you know what I'm saying? If the instructor is engaging and actually wanting to be there and teach the students that's in front of them, it would make the course,
Right.
you know what I'm saying, a lot more active and just sitting in class and just looking at her write something on the board and copy down. That's not engaging.
There you go.
So-
Good discussion. Kathy, go ahead with the rest.
Yeah, so all of that talks directly to this one theme that we had of what student success versus the student experiences and this sense of belonging that we want to build in the classroom and around the campus. Kindness, so this is the diversity, equity, and belonging foundational practice number 2 that we have, and kindness rose to the top. And specifically the statement to treat everyone how you would like to be treated, right? That simple principle that we all learned in kindergarten, right? It has a lot of value. Did that switch? It did. Okay. Mine didn't switch. So then some opportunities for improvement. All of them that are, solid colors were the same as we had on the previous set. And in this one, we added 2 locations of academic programs and transportation in the light gray, and then in the light blue, diversity of our staff and faculty. So in this diversity, equity, and belonging really aligned closely with student success, but we added in these kind of opportunities for improvement, making sure that academic programs are accessible to all of our students, that they have the transportation necessary to get between those programs, and that we are constantly recruiting for a diverse faculty and staff. We went to, do you want to mention the gentleman we met this weekend who was from Peekskill?
Sure, you go ahead.
Well, you tell.
So the Hispanic, I thought you were
No, I
asking.
want you to talk
So
about it.
the Hispanic, the college attended the Hispanic Heritage Breakfast 10 annual, and the keynote speaker, Dave, and I can't think of his last
He's
name
a
right now.
superintendent of Peekskill.
Dr. Maurice,
Oh,
I know. And he did an awesome presentation, and part of his presentation is that really to reflect the community that the school is serving. How do we transform so that we have accurate representation from our faculty and staff. And he was able to do that, but they were very intentional about the strategy that they put in place to really ensure that it was equitable and really bringing that. And one of the things that he mentioned over and over again, this idea that we're not able to find minority who are qualified. They're just not out there. And that's a myth.
And he
because-
shouted that, yeah.
And very much so. And I think it's really this effort. So we did ask him to partner with us in some form or another. So we're hoping to get him to
He's
come and say
fantastic.
and speak to our college, because he was really, and he, you know, he grew up in the Bronx, New York, so he understands the reality
He told
of
his
what that
life
means.
story. It was
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
it really brought a lot of power to the work that he's doing. He's from the
Absolutely.
region. He's from
He
here.
was the associate superintendent
He-
of
yes,
both schools
yes.
before he left.
Yes, me, Colleen, and Mauricio were on a team together, and our community schools motto was ranked #1 in the country.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. Yes. So
That's very interesting. And I think we should hear more from him.
yeah.
Yes,
he's- yeah, we can get him.
Including at the board level, and even as a speaker at graduation
Yes,
or
yes,
appropriate,
yes.
a convocation.
Yes. Yeah.
Find a spot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But yes.
We made a beeline to him to invite him.
The-
So.
Yes.
But now that we know that you guys have personal relationships,
Yeah,
maybe you
we
can
can,
help.
we can text him.
Yeah, that's even better. That's even
Because
better.
I do not like that conversation stopper. You know, we all have conversation
Yes,
stoppers,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Oh, I'd like to recruit more diverse faculty. They're not out there. And,
Mhm.
let's get past that and see what we
Yes.
can do.
So the metrics in this, again, very similar to student success, just 2 new ones added in the gray, light gray and the light blue. We want to review our program offerings for equity of access. So where are they being taught? We have a disparity of where our engineering technologies programs are at South and North. Only one happens to be at City Campus. We want to look at that and think through the availability of our educational opportunities. And then we also need to look to renegotiate our transportation contracts as we're struggling with those. And then integrate best practices of environmental design of student service areas. So someone had asked on the board, so all these Post-it notes you see are comments from faculty and staff that came to Student Success Day. And one of the questions was, what does environmental design mean? Sorry, I'm an architect. It basically just means the space, right? So everyone wanted to have a space that was more inviting. They wanted to have spaces that were adjacent to one another so students weren't traveling between all these different programs or buildings and getting lost. So we want to have that kind of central hub that Dr. Sagai was able to create for us at City Campus after the blizzard, and we want to replicate that model on our other campuses so students have this one-stop shop to come in and get the services they need and be on their way in a very time-effective manner. Our next,
Kathy, before you leave that topic, at one point you mentioned transportation in this.
Yes.
Can you, unless I missed it, can you elaborate a little on that, what your thoughts are on that?
yeah, so our students, I'm gonna maybe give anecdotal here a little bit about some students I had who were at South Campus. City students who spent hours getting to South Campus. They'd catch a bus to get to City Campus in the morning. That would take them an hour from, a mile and a half away from our city campus. Then they would get on a shuttle. And because our shuttle at the time included stops at our off-site housing, these people were traipsed 45 minutes to an hour around Western New York to get from City Campus to South Campus. I get really angry about this, so I'm sorry, I'll try to temper myself. So they were on transportation for 3 hours one way to school when they live 20 minutes away by car. Talk about inequity, right? Unbelievable. I changed all of my classroom assignments so that they could be done on transportation, so students could engage reading or engage videos
Fantastic.
while they were sitting on that bus, because they were never going to finish if that was their life.
They lost 3 hours of their life on a
6,
bus.
because the day round trip. And then we had lost our shuttle the one time, so then they had to figure out how to get on 2 modes of public transportation to get to campus. It's outrageous. And we don't need to be in that business of shuttling students around. We don't live in New York City. We don't live in California. We live in Western New York, where we're 20 minutes away from everything. And our students should benefit from that.
And what steps do you envision in this plan to address that?
The shuttle, can
Or
be direct.
Transportation in general.
So our shuttle should be a direct route from one campus to the next. I had proposed this years ago. It was a very simple solution where if we have students that are being housed for football, they have their shuttle. But then our students have shuttles bi-directional, and we have another shuttle that just kind of circles. There can be a circling one. But students who are just going to South Campus don't need to go all the way over to Canisius where we have students living. They have no business being over there. They have a business in the classroom.
So just bring a more rational,
Just
it may be
being-
more costly to run more buses, but we gotta be, we
Yes.
gotta get people from one place to the other.
Yes.
Is that why I always saw SUNY Erie over there?
Yes, you did. It's outrageous. And the fact that there weren't more people screaming bloody murder. I mean, I had I was told to stay in my lane, but I am now in the lane, and that's going to change.
That's right.
So, sorry, my poor students, they did not deserve that. They
No.
really didn't. And the fact that they made their way through that and went on to Alfred and to UB and are now practicing architecture in Buffalo, they deserve kudos for that because we put them through the ringer to get there. So economic development and upward mobility for students. Those students got there because we helped them attain their goals. We were communicating the relationship of their learning opportunities to the industry needs. They knew they had a place. That's why they persevered through that. I want to have a renewed focus on applied learning. We do applied learning. We have over 85% of our programs are applied degrees, which means that students have hand-on experience in their classroom. They might not be in the workspace, but they have hands-on real-world experiences being replicated in the classroom. And we need to market that. And we need to properly report it to SUNY, please. And then we also want to make sure that we're providing our students with financial literacy skills so that they're set off on the right foot when they do enter their workforce. And so some opportunities to improve this is making sure our articulation agreements and our workplace placements of our students after graduation are high visibility on our website, so students see what they're aspiring to. We want to leverage multiple access points to the classroom, so 7.5-week program. Can we expand that? Locations, modalities, micro-credentials, certifications, and our degrees. We want to make sure that we are giving students access to all of these different opportunities to give them the economic and upward mobility that they need.
And this is, if I may add, this is where the teaching and learning component will fit in appropriately, because this is the part that we're talking about in terms of reviewing programmatic curriculum and then the value of those curriculum and what that means. And as you know, there's a huge push from every level, nationally and locally, this idea of workforce. And workforce is not as we know it workforce in terms of bringing individuals from company and upskilling them. That's not the definition from workforce that we're talking about nationally. It's the idea that we have curriculum and programming that will allow students to be in those programs, but to be able to get a job, right? And what does that look like? That our curriculum are relevant and they make sense to the industry. So our advisory board, but it's an opportunity for us under Adrian's leadership to really look at our academic programming and review those, making sure that they're relevant and they make sense with us, to make sure that our students have the opportunity to gain mobility in our community.
We want to be able to leverage our advisory board connections, potentially building mentorship programs into all of our academic programs that lead to employment. We want to have better connections with our student pathways and seamless transfer out on the website. In addition to that, we want to really take advantage of all of the state-of-the-art programs that we have and really explain to the community what it is we do. For example, that respiratory care program. Not sure how many of you knew we had that program, but it is a very important piece of our contribution to the community, and we want to be able to announce those programs out far and wide. And then articulate how the college helps students expand their future, create the life that they want, and change the trajectory of their family. And so we can do this. A lot of this is, instead of being number-based metrics, they're going to be kind of like baseline of this is where we are now and here's where we want to be. So right now our website doesn't do these things cleanly. We want to transition to a website that does. So they're going to be more outcome-based than necessarily a metric, numerical metric. The final foundational practice
This should be Jeff.
is institutional sustainability. And in this one, we want to make sure that one of the things that was talked about was damage control, restoring the college's reputation. I believe we're far along the way of doing that at this point in time, but embracing the unique value that the college provides to the community and making sure that we're articulating our wins and not necessarily the negative communications that have been in the past. Developing a financial model that is focused on assessment and results. So all of those things that we were talking about, the transportation issues, the classroom issue in terms of reducing the size, those decisions shouldn't necessarily be based on, I understand in the past they've had to be based on a bottom line of a budget ledger. In this day and age, if we're doing things appropriately, those decisions, those easy decisions to make the life of the student more impactful, become the easy decision to make in the boardroom because the finances will fix themselves if we're doing these things right. So trying to pinch pennies on transportation while we're exacerbating the students' ability to get to the classes that they've paid for, those decisions become a little bit less likely to have to be made if we're doing everything else around it right. So a holistic approach to our internal communication at the college and leveraging our technological investments, Workday maybe, to improve efficiencies and lead to sustainable practices. And so some ways that we can do that is we're going to, through Craig's guidance, improve our marketing, improve the website. We're working diligently right now with Paul and the county to work on improving the facilities to reflect the college's important role in the community, maintaining the relevancy of our academic programs, creating a communication plan that's clear, systematic, and doesn't become white noise to our internal community, reducing paperwork and workflows so that our staff can spend more time with the students and less time doing the mundane tasks that keep the offices functioning and drowning in paper. And we can do all of that again through very tangible outcomes, listing the kind of baseline of where we are now and just marking the trajectory for each step along that path. And all of this should set our future president for success as this strategic plan builds that institutional sustainability and really empowers not only the students to success, but our faculty and our staff. And they will all be contributing to the sustainability of the school.
And thank you so much, Kathy. The goal here is, again, like I mentioned earlier, to send this to the board with questionnaire for your feedback. And then we'll talk to our student body to get their feedback, as well as our partners to get their feedback, and then ultimately have a final presentation for the board in the August meeting for your approval. Once that's approved, hopefully, the idea here is that this would be the guiding tool for us, because as you know, the college community has been asking for where we're going, what's our direction. This will be the way to go for us, and everything that we do, from facility to security to student services to the faculty side, will direct this to that. And this is going to be a key for us that is data-driven, evidence-based. So part of the goal is for us to report on a regular basis to the board to give you exactly what those outcomes are based up on the activities and action that the college takes. So ultimately, it's really our access, right, enrollment. Mm-hmm. It's really our persistence and retention and graduation rate and placement and beyond. That has to be that. And that number has to reflect that. If that number is not going in the right direction, then we need to think about what we're doing in terms of the activities and an effort that we're putting together. So that's the goal of the presentation, is to really give the college a roadmap and how we want to move forward.
Well, this is exactly where our emphasis should be. Yes. As a college, as a board. I'm glad that we talked about this first, and we'll move on to the other business soon, but this is the type of thing that is a fruitful discussion to have. You touched on all the pillars. I like the idea of the foundational principles. That's a good way to go.
It's all Dr. Sagai.
It was an excellent presentation.
Yeah, it really was, and it touched on really the whole litany of things that we have in our minds about the college as trustees. One thing you could perhaps clarify, we've had the idea of the one-year bridge strategic plan, and here it's kind of extending till 20
year.
to 25. How is that working? How does that fit with our relatively soon hiring of a new permanent president, and how does he or she fit into that?
So when we were talking with the board strategic planning
Yes.
committee,
Yes.
2 years seemed like a good time, length of time, because we're hiring, I don't know if it's you or we, but hiring in what you said, I think September, October, the last meeting that we had. So it will give them from August, so if they come in September, it will give them a 2 years kind of foundation for themselves to get to learn the institution and know that that work has been, done by the institution to keep them being able to kind of make their plans and observations of what we're doing in the region, and then in 2 years they can start.
I see,
training.
okay.
So they're going to need a year to probably plan.
Yes.
So they have a year to live, a year to plan, and a year to launch.
This actually makes sense to me, rather than putting the pressure on
Yes.
after, the one-year plan goes poof and now we need another one.
Yep.
There's nothing that I've heard in this plan that makes me lose any confidence about having it be more than 1 year. I think these are the right ideas that you've articulated. I'm interested in other trustees' view of
If
this.
you bring the right person on, they might just keep it.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it was going to be it's going to be a helpful thing for a new president to come in and have
have
something
foundation.
in place,
Have a
and something
foundation.
more than a 1 year and go poof thing. And there, nothing to me, none of this speaks to it being transitory or short term. I mean, these are really significant things. Other trustees' thoughts?
I agree. I agree that it doesn't seem transitory. It seems like something that can really become the foundation of how the institution operates and directs itself going forward, right? Foundational principles are just that. They're what you build on.
Yeah.
So I think that this, to me, really sounds like more of a turnaround plan for developing the future, other than we're just going to use this model for 1, 2, 3 years.
Yes.
And just to note, right, part of what we did, the work we did, is look at what SUNY in general, right? So the chancellor has a full 4 pillars similar to this. Middle state, right? So this work was not just, okay, we'll take, student success and empowerment. It's really tying to the Chancellor SUNY's vision, where SUNY's going, because we get a lot of support and funding from SUNY, but also our middle state, right? Our purpose, right, as an institution is to make sure that we're grounded in the concept of what middle state requires. And I certainly believe strongly that our foundation has to be built on those, equally on those other accreditation that we have. We have close to 20, 30 other accreditation. So we have to tie to that. So I think it lends itself nicely. But more importantly, I think you heard it over and over again. The college community has been asking, where are we going? Why are we doing this work? And so I think while future is great, but we have to serve the here and now. We have students right now here. We have faculty and staff right now here. We are being held accountable as to what we're doing right now and here. So I think the urgency to be able to have something, but the direction that it is approved by the board, so that the college community know that the work that they're doing is really going to really map to this. And that's critical. That's not next week. That's really today, tomorrow, so that our college really feels strong, like that we have a direction. The last thing I want to mention, the community as well. Constantly, as I'm out in the community, that's the question I get asked over and over again. Where's the college going? What's the direction? Right? So I'm able to really say we have a direction, we have a focus. Our student success is a focus. So it's also a really key that we give people a way to have a conversation when we go into the community about where we are and where we're going in the future. But the here and now is so critical. We do not have time to really,
No, we don't.
you just test that out. We're not testing. There's no acting here. I say that to folks. This really is impacting people's life right now.
And just for, I don't remember if I told you, but we had over 85 participants across the community contribute in the focus group sessions, and then an additional 65 at our Summer Institute who've
Right.
seen this and contributed. And one of the things, I'm just finalizing our Middle States follow-up report that is due on Wednesday, but there's just one statement that when Dr. Sagai was talking, that I feel like you all would maybe benefit from hearing. We typically write this statement: SUNY Erie is the 4th largest community college in the State University of New York system. And then that sentence was always ended with, and we have 20 higher ed competitors in the region. So I've changed that sentence, and I feel like it's really important that we hear the end of it. SUNY Erie is the 4th largest of 30 community colleges in the State University of New York system, employing 497 full-time staff and 276 part-time staff, and educating 13,346 unduplicated undergraduate students in 22
Wow.
and 23.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So really remembering that those are our people, right? We have 770 employees that we take care of, and we have over 13,000 students that we are giving a brighter future.
Well, we're not voting on this today, but I think I'm certainly sensing from fellow trustees and in my own mind the thought that this is very, very good. Kathy, you've put a lot of time and attention and real care into this. Thank you for that. You stand at a good position at the intersection of our Middle States work that you've been done so well over the years, and the strategic planning efforts that we've been talking about now for an hour, and just a general sense of things around the campus. I really couldn't imagine a more perfect person to be
Thank you.
focusing on
Thank you.
this, helping Dr. Sagai, taking input from all the various quarters, the process you organized, which has been very good, and we've heard about that in prior meetings, very important. This is not just you sitting at a computer and making stuff up. You know, it's coming from organically from the whole community that we're working for here. So I just appreciate that. I know all the other trustees do as well, and I just want to send the strongest signal that we're grateful and that we think this is on the right track, and that we look
Thank you.
forward to voting on this.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Just want to add a comment too. I think the process that the involvement with all the participants and the shareholders, the stakeholders, whatever we want to call them, speaks to the change in culture that we want to inculcate.
Exactly.
Good.
We want to have a different culture here.
Love that.
And I think you're touching on those nerve points too. And it sends, just by the process itself, it sends the message that we're doing things with a different focus now.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to expand on that and thank all the number of people who
Yes.
participated in these workshops, many of whom are sitting around the edge of this room or online or will be watching. I mean, that's really important to not just blow that off and say, oh, not going to go, it's just another strategic plan. But really invest. I mean, we've got something going here. This is going to be good. We've got to just all do our part. And I like the direction, and I like the feeling that this discussion has generated.
And if I could just, sorry, Melody, if I could just clarify one point. Will we receive will we be receiving this to look at?
You
and to
will.
give
So
feedback
I will
to?
send it to Kelly later today with a questionnaire that she'll forward to you all.
Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
And I appreciate the work, it's really fantastic.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, this couldn't have come at a better time. I don't know if anybody else is monitoring or waiting for the SCOTUS decision to be released regarding race-conscious decisions being used in the in college admissions. But just some of the things that we've seen in Michigan, and then Proposition 209 in California, eliminating race-conscious decisions in the admissions process. Now, I don't think it really affects SUNY Erie, but what happened in Michigan is because that is specifically, about underserved or underrepresented minorities, this message got out in these two states, or there was a narrative, and I don't know how it's developed or how it was created, but just underrepresented minorities stopped applying for college, whether or not it was an open enrollment or whatever. So the work that's being done here, essentially what I'm saying, could not have come at a better time. Building a sense of belonging and also eliminating narratives that are inaccurate, that people just assume, okay, now that SCOTUS has eliminated, race-conscious decisions in the admissions process, I'm not going to be accepted into school, which makes no sense. So I just think that this is very, very important to counteract what we've seen and states that have eliminated this, those unintended consequences, where they thought everything was just going to be the same. It changed the way people's behavior, students, high school students' behaviors in applying for college, and the drop-off is significant.
It's been a very enriching discussion. Thanks to all.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. We'll now move to some matters of formal business and some votes. The first thing that we have by way of the consent agenda is the Board of Trustees minutes from our last meeting, formal meeting on May 25th, and then a special meeting that we had on June 9th to address a particular contract. And unless anyone has comments or corrections, I'll take a motion to accept and approve those 2 minutes as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. And any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? So those 2 sets of minutes for our recent meetings are approved. Thank you to those who took the minutes and compiled them and worked them out. Items received outside of our committee meetings. Here we have several contracts that I have looked at them. There are 4 here in front of us, or not contract, 3 contracts in the Human Resources report. And we will go through them one by one. Nadia, if you could identify the proper person to speak to each.
Yep.
I think we can move through these pretty quickly because they've been in front of us and summarized.
Good morning. The first item that's on here is a agreement with RCT Catering. This is for our 2 summer programs. One is with Say Yes, one is with our EOP, Education Opportunity Program. This actually came up in a recent budget and audit meeting, subcommittee meeting, a few months back, where I think you had asked about Anderson's, like where did this come from? This is actually following the approved process based on the dollar amount for the 6-week program for both Say Yes as well as EOP. So this went out to bid through BidNet. We did receive a vendor that we are working with. He's a really dynamic individual, has a lot of history in serving government-related programs, and we're looking then to move forward with him so that it creates an equitable but also nutritious experience for each of the students that are going to be going through this program over the summer.
The only question I had when I looked at this, and I think this is something we should be doing, is whether all of this will come from our budget, or can New York State or some grant from an outside party cover this?
It is.
There's so much money.
So the EOP portion of it has been approved as part of our Summer Bridge program, which is
Okay.
going to be the majority of the costs associated with this. And then we also received a grant from the Community Foundation that's going to also augment
Yeah,
this
there's
as
so
well.
much money around for this type of thing that whenever we're doing something wonderful and it's benefiting students, one thought we always ought to have is, this is worth paying for if we have to. But is there another source of funding that can
Right.
cover it and free up our money?
So both the EOP program in totality, as well as our Say Yes program, are being supported by the state, which is for EOP, and then the Community Foundation for Say Yes. Depending on the program where the line item comes in for food, may come from us, but other pieces are going to be supplemented, such as staffing costs, operational costs. So there is
The $10.99 per meal would come from our budget, or?
it depends on the
that?
program. So for actually Say Yes, it's somewhat impartial between our operating budget. For the EOP program, it's actually be coming from the state.
Well, I'm not insisting that it be totally covered. I'm just saying let's get as much outside
Correct.
funding to
There's
the
other
table as we
funding coming
can.
from it, yep.
Yep. All right. We'll vote on these all at once.
I actually have a second one as well. So the Arbol Community Incorporated, this is a financial wellness coaching company. It's a startup company here that's within Buffalo or Western New York. They're partnering with a number of institutions, and I'm proud that we are part of the early adopters into this. What Arbol provides is financial wellness as well as financial literacy training, especially to individuals that are at risk of not being able to fund their education. And what this will then allow us to do is to purchase up to 245 licenses through a grant. So it's going to be supported then through grant funding. And students that will then have access to this will be able to participate at no cost to them in this financial wellness that looks at their budget in terms of what income they're bringing in, their costs as it relates to their education, as well as outside of their classroom experience in terms of their life and managing their budgetary amounts.
Does that only allow 245 students to utilize the program?
It's up to that for this portion. Now, if we get beyond that, we are able to purchase more, and that's where it then come from, either other funding sources or from the operating budget.
This is good, pretty good. I would have preferred the no-cost community college proposal that was at the federal level a year or two ago that did not get adopted. But failing that, let's make it as easy as possible for our students, because one of the things that I think we've all learned being trustees is how often that barrier stops things cold. And not just the lack of money, but the form. Filling out a FAFSA, doing things that, checking all the boxes and being in that moment where, I think Kathy mentioned it, where you don't want to do it and you put it off and then suddenly it's too late. I mean, that's just, we lose.
And what this is going to really help provide, so we're going to prioritize the students that are in our EOP, Say Yes, Independence Bound,
Okay.
and some of our opportunity programs. And then once we have the opportunity there, extend beyond that. Where this becomes really interesting, not only what you shared in terms of the finances, but also knowing how to use these finances to help with making financially smart choices. So students that we serve are very likely to then be eligible for full Pell as well as TAP funding. So as a 18, 19-year-old, imagine you're getting thousands of dollars potentially back in refund. How do you use that wisely? Right? I mean, I think any of us in the community, you get this money, you're like, how do we use it? That's a generational societal challenge. What I really like about this company is that they work directly with the student to help advise them, how do you use these funds in the most wise way to help you continue to reach your both educational and professional goals.
I like that too, that right at that student level, I had the same thought. If you need more licenses, you should come back to us about this.
I think they would be happy to partner with us. So David, Fabio, and Mike over there are great to work with.
And will these initial licenses and the students who participate, will the outcomes be tracked? What's the outcomes
Yeah.
and what's the data that we'll get on whether this is achieving what we want?
That's great. So one of the reasons why we did the 245 is that this is coming from a strategic enrollment management grant that our office has been awarded. And as part of this, we'll be tracking to see what impact this is having, as well as also identifying any unexpected, barriers or things that we can then memorialize as we go into these programs. So the vision I have is overseeing our opportunity programs. If this is successful, then it becomes a staple within, for example, the EOP program. And that's where then the state is able then to help fund this. In perpetuity moving forward, each student would then benefit by having this as a value add of participating in this program. But I want to use this, it's more than a pilot, it's a pretty substantial number, but use this as collecting evidence of what impact is it having and making sure that we can target the best population, if not all, that this could benefit from.
Eric, I'm sorry if you've already covered this, but is this a course that students are taking? Or?
No, it's a resource that students have. So it's not a class, it's not a course, but they can make an appointment with a financial wellness counselor at Arbol, and they meet with the student and go over their finances, as well as there's also an app that helps them track in terms of their budget and how to use these dollars wisely.
So the choice to do this is up to the student?
Correct, they opt in.
Got it. It would be nice if there was like a credit-bearing course that students could take into this. That way it would be in it, if they would get credit for the course, and I could definitely see a student taking it. I mean, I could just see being an 18-year-old getting thousands of dollars and then someone telling me how to use this wisely. I'm like,
So we could probably do something with that though after the pilot. One of the we have a course, GS 111.
College success. I was gonna say that's
Yeah.
it kind of
It would be
we would just throw it
dovetail.
honestly right in there because they cover financial literacy and all
Exactly.
that. So,
So we could
and it's a
tie
really
it.
good
and
course.
that's
I
a
learned a lot.
mandatory course, isn't it?
Yes, it
It's
is.
College
required
success?
depending
For that
on where
program.
you are in the college, so liberal arts
Oh, that's
students typically, but it's a
fantastic.
nice way to pilot to see. We connect it with that course. Students would get, credit for that activity, right? So we could easily work with that, and Eric could work with the.
That would be
Yeah, once we know the
so
outcomes of this work,
nice.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. I wish more people would have talked to me about my money, but I definitely thought I had better ideas at 18 than.
It's society-wide. There should be a lot more literacy, financial literacy training in high schools.
Well, especially too, as we look at, financial aid regulations about gainful employment and how institutions are going to be measured from there. I think it's not only beneficial to the student, but it's beneficial to the institution that we invest in our students and how they use their money appropriately. And this is a great way to advance our students.
Thank you.
Right, those are the two I had.
Starfish, Kathy?
Oh, yes. The college uses Starfish currently as our attendance for our never attends third week rosters and for our early alert system. In the past year, we've been evaluating the use of that software and these colleges' implementation, and have discovered that we just need a little bit more time to make some decisions. So we're asking for a 6-month extension of that contract before we commit to a full extension.
Right, so you haven't decided to move away from Starfish officially,
Correct?
but you're evaluating whether
We're
to do so.
evaluating. We just need 6 more months to evaluate.
And this is the system we're in already.
It is.
Yeah. Is the cost of this on a par with the cost we've been paying for it to date, or has it increased or decreased?
That is approximately 50% of our annual
Okay,
cost.
so running at the same rate?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you're evaluating that and other contracts. We're now on page 20, the Human Resources Agenda.
Yes. This is a request to fill a need in the ITS department for an ITS assistant project coordinator. So this money would come from the vacancy reserve, so there's no additional funds needed.
Yeah. Dr. Sagai, is this something that normally would be a subject of board approval because it's not senior executive staff? It seems to me more of a routine thing.
I think
It's because it's a new position.
part of what we found, part of our contract is that the new position need to be presented to the board.
It's a completely new job
Yeah.
description.
Oh,
And part of it is really the work that we're doing is really assessing, and this is Amanda's committee, our committee with HR is really assessing positions, and then based upon need, perhaps having new positions. So this is a new position. So it's my understanding that with new position has to be presented to the board.
all right, I don't object to voting on it. What's the general concept of creating this position? Why?
It's to centralize the support model for the college.
This is again
I can speak to
under,
it if you'd
yes,
like,
please,
since I
please.
wrote it.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So ITS currently has a clerical staff member, and they service both sides of the ITS team. We have a functional team with all of our hardware, end user support, all of the laptops, all the servers, all the stuff across the campus, and then we have our ERP team. And so we need someone who has the time and ability to work on the budget for both sides of the house, and also provide support in those areas, and kind of coordinate with the clerical that is in place and the staff for the meetings and other, especially with the ERP project. It's a very important role, as they will help in the management of that project.
Okay, any questions before we vote on the 4 items? If not, I would entertain a motion, please, to approve all of the 4 items that have been presented in our materials and just described.
I'll move it.
Okay, thanks. Second. All right. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These are approved, these 4 items listed under Roman 3.
Thank you.
Speaking of human resources, we have an item of information, the personnel transaction report on page 28. Maureen,
Yes.
thank you again for joining us.
Sure.
We need you.
So these are just the transactions that happened in May? This is what you're speaking to?
Yes.
Page 28?
Yes.
These are all
Yeah.
transfers and hires and new job changes that have happened. It's just a recap or summary of what's happened.
Usually,
last month.
I go through these, Maureen, and just look for things that have, catch my eye.
Yeah,
One thing I'd like to mention is to welcome Craig Garris Johnson
Mhm.
to his new position, a valuable one, and also note that you're on the search committee for the new president of the college.
Oh, that's
We
fantastic.
appreciate that time as well. And then, of course, Maureen, you're listed as well. That's nice to
Yes, I
see.
am. Thank you.
And again, with appreciation to Mike Barone, who resigned his post, but he stopped his arrangement with the college. But we're very grateful to Mike for the work he did over the months that he was with us. And it's possible that Mike might find a way to help us in the future. We left on very good terms. And I just wanted to mention quickly, Adia, perhaps you want to speak about Joan Castro.
Yes, just so Joan, as most of you may know, she's been with the college for a long time. She did officially retire, but then came back on a part-time basis to help the provost's office. I have to tell you, she has history, and it was time for her to spend time with her family, so she retired again. I told her she could come back, so I'm waiting for her to come back, so she retired. So she is enjoying herself with her family, so I want to officially thank her for all the work that she have done at the college, but she's still available, so I always call her to ask her for some stuff, so.
Very good.
Yes.
Good.
And then I think Katie Marshall, who is an intern, dean of continuing education.
Okay, yes.
Katie.
You are.
And she will be working with Colleen Reedy on the workforce side. I know
Right.
that's an area that we have to really work, and so Katie's on board to work with Colleen Reedy to really focus on the work side of the college, workforce side of the college.
Oh, there you go. I got you. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Just on the HR side, I just wanted to be noted that we are very deliberate about our hiring process. We're taking all the steps to make sure that we review and evaluate and make sure that it's a fit. So that process has been going on. Sometimes a little bit long, but I think it's worth the exercise for us to do that and appropriately allocate positions in the areas that we need. A priority, obviously, student facing first, but we do have a lot of, especially IT being a critical piece in the college, that we need to appropriately staff it with the right skill. And as IT changes constantly, that's an area that we're very conscious about, making sure that we have the appropriate skill set to do that. So we'll see more, especially in the IT area of the college.
I think as a board, we're very comfortable with the way you and the senior executive staff have been handling hiring and reimagining job titles, using the vacancy control funding that we've established, that mechanism to keep a good control on it, but looking to see where positions can be rearranged, reimagined, where good people can be brought forward. I think that's been a very strong point of college leadership, and I think we want to encourage you to keep doing that. The folks that are around the corner, the edge of the room, are very good at this meeting and others, and I feel that's a real positive thing that's happening at the college that may not be fully appreciated outside.
I'd just like to mention one thing too, in that same area is financial aid is going to have some
Absolutely. Yes.
changes over June and July. We
Yes.
have two major retirements of people been here for more than 30 years, so we're working on that diligently to get the support they need, and Aden was key to that
Yes.
in a meeting the other day.
Yes.
It's always nice, yeah. All right, all set?
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. That was informational. And now we'll move to committee briefings, and we'll start with curriculum, student success, and diversity. Candace Morrison.
Okay, I think Erickson is going to come up and speak to it. We had a good meeting, and I have my notes up in front of me, but did not put the date of the meeting on my notes. But we had a good meeting this last month, and Erickson, if you could hit the highlights from the meeting, and if there's anything else, I'll fill in at the end.
Excellent. Yeah, I believe there are 3 items that came from that meeting's discussion for the board's approval. The first is with regards to our automotive tech program, and specifically the SECO partnership with West Her. Essentially what's happening here is they're going to increase the cohort size to 15 students from currently being at 12. Given the demand in the industry as well as our region for this is an opportunity then to increase the amount of participation in the program, while also still being within then the safety regulations, making sure that students are receiving a great not only academic program, but staying them within the ability to serve those students.
I hope that program keeps growing.
Mhm.
It went from 12 to 15, and they are anxious to hire folks who are willing to train in this area. And we'll be talking about a Northtown visit that we had as well as West Her. So I certainly personally endorse this. We'll be voting on all three at once unless
Okay.
there's objection. Agreement with Buffalo
Yep.
Academy?
The second item here is a agreement with Buffalo Academy of Science. And here it would be allowing us to participate in our advanced studies classes at the no tuition cost. So this would be considered one of the Title I eligible schools. And so we would then be proceeding forward with foregoing the 1/3 tuition to increase the opportunity for students to be able to participate in these classes while they're in high school.
You've
reducing
done
those
this
financial
elsewhere,
barriers.
Erickson?
That's correct.
Mhm.
Those Title I eligible schools, we will then participate in that with, such
Okay.
as Charter School, Applied Technology, and others.
And just to clarify, Title I eligible schools means?
These are going to be like the free and reduced lunch
Right.
programs, in which typically serving lower income
Right.
school districts. Buffalo Public, Charter School, Applied Technologies, these are the ones that we want to reduce those financial barriers to allow students the same equitable outcomes in terms of gaining college credit while they're in high school.
Good. We have the calendar as well, which I did go through. It's always good, I think, fellow trustees, Cameron, as you get these lists and your material, highlight a few things in there. You'll see graduation or commencement is there. You'll see convocation in the spring and in the fall. That's when everybody gets together here at North, and it's a good, positive day or morning.
Calendar's not in here, is it?
It should be in the materials that you received from Kelly before the meeting. So
It's gonna be
you
there.
can get at it through the portal and
Right.
through
Okay.
Kelly. But that's, basically, you can go online, as a new trustee and see everything, or
Okay.
print it out, or Kelly will print it out
Print
for
it
you.
out.
I actually
Okay.
asked her to do that, because I prefer hard copy.
Copy, yeah.
And then you'll see where the holidays fall, which is always helpful, and just a few key dates. So I don't think that anything of great substance with the calendar that's...
No, it was something that there was multiple departments that were able to discuss this, and I don't think, Adrian, there's anything else beyond that. But
Okay.
it allows us to be able to plan appropriately.
Yeah, no,
now at
a
this point.
lot of thought goes into it, I know. All right, absent an objection, I'll entertain a motion, please, for the approval of all three items listed for board approval under curriculum, student success, and diversity as presented and discussed.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those three items are approved. We'll, for the information, we have the minutes, and I presume you're comfortable with those?
Yes.
Okay. All set? Anything to
All
add?
set, and that was June 14th. I looked up the dates.
Oh, okay, very good.
I forgot to.
And we'll move now, please, to budget audit and facilities, and Chair Ken Cruling.
We have 5 items for board approval. Pretty basic stuff, disposal of some materials that the county purchasing department will take care of and forward the proceeds to the college. The services of Mr. Fisher in the Law Enforcement Training Academy. The agreement authorizing workforce development changes and fees. License agreement for the football stadium. We'll be using the Williamsville South facility down the street. And that'll be the cost of about $12,000 for the year. And the amendment to the Service Collaborative of Western New York Agreement. All pretty straightforward items that the board has dealt with in the past, except perhaps for the stadium lease agreement.
Yes, I agree. We talked about this at the Budget Committee, all of those items at some appropriate length. I think the one of most community interest is probably with respect to the use of the Williamsville South Stadium for football team.
Yes.
Do you want to just talk a little bit about that, Dr. Sagai?
Absolutely. Colleen?
Sure. Hi everyone. Hi. As I think everyone knows, with the South construction going on, we are moving our football team to the North Campus. In B building, we're renovating some of the classrooms. We've got the athletic workout room is already pretty much done. they're repainting everything and putting the school colors. It's beautiful. It's very exciting. And we're also in B building upgrading some of the space, just some of the community spaces for students, all students, and some space near the new football hall for our football students, and just, it's very exciting. And so, as a result of the construction itself, we are gonna, this coming year, use Williamsville South, which is across the street almost from here, use their facilities for our games.
Good. And then ultimately, the plan is to develop fields here. But in the meantime, we appreciate Williamsville South and the Williamsville Central School District's willingness to partner with us and provide a facility for our team.
Yes, we do.
That's an important element of enrollment right now. There are lots of reasons that people come, especially to community colleges, and one of them may be to participate in a sport like football or another sport. So never want to close the door. We're always going to be measuring cost and benefit and so forth, but for now, this is where we find ourselves, and I think it's good that our program has a home, a nearby home. And again, appreciation to Dr. Darren Brown Hall and his staff at Williamsville CSD for being a good neighbor to Erie Community College and helping us when we are in transition.
Just one question while we're talking about the football team. Do we do housing now for that team?
No, we do not.
Because I know there were issues in the past.
We do not. We advise, refer or give them suggestions, but
Okay.
not actual.
And this gives us an opportunity to really reassess and have that conversation, because some of the things that Kathy mentioned as a way of transportation, that was always an issue for students who live, depending where they live. So it is something that within that area we're going to be looking at to see if there's a need, and if so, what does that look like? Is it something that the college own, or do we work and use our resources to really intentionally collaborate so that we have student housing appropriately? So it's something we're looking at, though.
Okay.
Very good. All right.
I just
Yeah.
want to note on that Buffalo Future Hub, I think it's an important piece just to highlight. That is part of what the college has been doing. This is a huge project that the college was part of. I know a lot of the trustees were involved in really this initiative. It's really serving 16 to 24. The Buffalo Future Hub will be, is at the city campus right now in
Which
Oak.
item are you talking about here?
This is item 48, on page 48, this
Service collaborative?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this is a huge, big deal for Western New York,
Okay,
but
got it.
specifically for our institution, because the Buffalo Future Hub is at our location downtown. There will be a grand opening. I know Kelly may have sent out, or we will send out, an invitation to the board for us to be part of that grand opening, where the prospective students, individuals 16 to 24, will be coming for services. And Eric and his team are collaborating with the staff there to make sure that we are there to serve the students as well. So this will be a huge initiative to really help our enrollment, but also really serve the community, because there is a segment of population that is either underemployed or hasn't graduated from high school within that 1624 that we are going to be serving and supporting.
One thing that I thought about when I read this was, I remember a discussion not very long ago, and Denise Wilson was in the
Yep,
chair,
this is it.
right? This is exactly
Yes,
it?
this is it.
Because it sort of overlapped in my mind with the Say Yes, and we were going to have an office.
The
right?
YEC, that's why you're thinking it that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to make sure to clear in my own mind the confusion. I liked it when Denise was
This is it.
was loving that program.
Yes.
It was disappointing, something happened and
Yes.
it didn't happen, and now it's resurging or recoming.
So what happened was that it changed. Originally, we were going to be the entire hub, and we were going to do
Okay.
the service ourselves as well.
Yes,
That
we-
did not take place. However, we are giving the space, and we are going to be, as a college, we are going to be partnering to make sure that those students are served. So the college took on the responsibility of providing the service and any other support that we could provide.
Okay, so
the
this
organization.
it's fair to say that this is a resurrection in a slightly
Yes,
different
yes.
form of something we were disappointed
That's right,
didn't happen
that's
a
right.
year ago.
That's right, yes.
Because I do remember that
Yes,
discussion very
yes,
distinctly.
Yes. but there will be a grand opening, I believe in July, that we will extend the invitation to the board.
What caused it to come back and now be done?
It didn't never go away, right?
Okay.
It's that we just had to adjust in terms of our role with it, because part of it did create some issues of a way of hiring the director and so forth. So the service part of it is outsourced, where we are a player in terms of we provide the space, but also really intentionally partner. I know Eric was part of the interview process for the director. We just got a director.
Did they hire
Yes,
someone?
yes. And then Colleen was at the event as well. So I think it's the partnership that we will have, but this being at our location, so specifically it'll be at our Oak location at the city campus. So these individuals will be coming to that location. So we're right there with them. So our staff will be interacting with those prospective students, as well as work on the programmatic side to hopefully enroll some of those students.
Good.
It's a great opportunity for us to support the community, but also to support the college by way of enrollment.
It was a great idea a year ago, and I'm glad to see it back
Yeah.
in front of us.
Yes.
Chairman Stone, I just want to do a really gentle time check, because I know that we're
Yeah,
end
I
at
think we'll
11.
move through the rest of the
Yep.
committees fairly quickly, because we're not going to be spending much time on the informational item, which is the financials. It's a very thick book this month, but it's mostly the financial statements. We've talked about them.
Okay.
All right. Are we ready then to vote on the 5 items under the budget, audit, and facilities as presented and discussed? All right, then a motion to approve. Thank you, Ken.
Second.
And second. Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved, and again, that is very exciting, especially item 5. And the football stadium situation is very interesting.
Very exciting.
Yeah. All right. We have some information things. Ken, do you want to comment
Just
on any of those?
the real highlight is the audit, and we had a full presentation. This is essentially the final product of that presentation, so nothing has particularly changed. 80 pages to explain the numbers and everything. The thing that I like is that it's basically a clean audit. I refer to pages 129, 130 in our package, where there were no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, and no findings. All positive things for an audit. That's what you want to see.
Right.
So we should be happy with that. The budget to actuals are tracking well. There's nothing particular to get into there, and the other stuff is pretty basic.
Right. And I would like to commend Arda for the hard work that she did on
Yes.
that budget process. She kind of got thrown in the midst of COVID and has done a masterful job of gaining a sense of our budget and how to develop our budget. She brought us a budget over a period of months earlier this year that we discussed at length at the Budget Committee and here. We passed a budget here and sent it to the county legislature. It was approved at the county legislature. Just for the record, the vote was 8-3. I was not present. Dr. Sagai was, and she may report on this when she reports, but I don't think that split vote, if you will, indicates any particular dissension regarding our decision on tuition or anything else. I'm not exactly sure, what led people to vote.
It was just
different
that
ways.
one, it was the
The registration.
fee increase of
Yes.
Oh, the fee
The
increase?
yeah,
registration.
Oh.
$25.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
So 3 people voted
that was
against
it? Okay, good. I'm glad to have that understood.
Just to note on that, they were very complimentary of where the college has been and where the college is right now. But I just want to note that Bill Reuter was also instrumental in
Yes, thank
supporting
you.
and helping us.
Appreciate that, yeah. I know Arda has learned a
Yes,
lot
yes.
from Bill, and they collaborate well together. Appreciate both their work. So, I think informational then, I think we're okay then. Any further comment on that? If not, Amanda, do you have anything to report from Talent, Diversity, Equity, and Belonging?
No, we did not meet this month.
All right, thank you. And Melody, Policy and Governance?
None of your report. We did not meet this month.
Okay. And Carrie Phillips is not here today, but they did meet on May 9th. And I was part of that, and we heard a lot today from Kathy on strategic planning, and that meeting on May 9th was a precursor to that presentation, which was very good.
Can I give you a brief mistakes?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
2 sentences,
Sure.
I know you have time constraints. We did have our visit to They had to come by because they weren't here for our virtual visit, so they did come and walk through our city campus. That went well.
Noted
And
that it existed.
They noted it
Yeah.
existed. It was very awkward, but lovely opportunity to meet someone in the area who reviewed the premises. And then we have our middle states report, follow-up report due on the 5th. And we have some fantastic work that the college, the faculty and staff have been putting together to submit. And I just got a reminder that we have to upload it on the 5th, so we are very eager to do that. And I just wanted to let you know that we're on target, and it should be up on Friday.
Good, thank you. All right. Marketing, Len Lenahan, any report?
We did not have a meeting. See, in Adam's officer in charge report, you're going to talk about marketing.
Sure.
You want Craig to talk
Yes,
then? Or?
yes. Craig could just
Or you
mention it right now.
do it now, or
Mhm.
wait?
Yeah, we could do it now.
Okay. Craig?
Okay. Sure. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
While Craig's getting seated, there was a nice report in our materials of the actions taken in, I think, May and June on that front.
Yeah, and that's pretty much my report right now, is that we've started working with the Martin Group. That campaign kicked off May 9th. So you'll see a lot more digital broadcast and outdoor media, display ads, all that kind of stuff is really kicked off and is going to be out in the community. A lot of what we're doing right now is gathering information and seeing what our baselines are so that we can work from that and see what we have to work with. The messaging for the most part right now is communicating our value proposition, but in the future what we'd like to do is move beyond that and really start communicating more about the common and extraordinary experiences that students have here, the exceptional faculty, and also allow people to see the faces and spaces that they might be in if they come here as a student. So that's our hope for the future with it, our intent. There are other things we're going to do. I don't know how much time we have. I can go into a few things.
Yeah, and that we've had a long report already, so I think maybe what the best thing to do is at our next meeting, you'll have a little bit more ground under you. Len's committee may have met, and we can talk a little bit more on marketing as we enter the fall semester.
Great.
Okay, but thank you. We're glad you're in position and that we have a position, a plan in place here for marketing as we seek to deal with enrollment, frankly. So, right. We do have an approval under my report, and I'll make a report. Schedule of meetings. I might as well start with that because it does involve a vote. I want to make sure we get that in. I have no objection to the stated list of meetings here, and it's hard for any of us to know our schedules this far in advance. I think the board retains some ability to talk with one another, decide to change a meeting date. One possibly could occur in August. I'll actually be on vacation. The next one that we have out of the country, and we may discuss between now and then a change in that meeting, or Melody will handle the meeting and I'll remote in or something. We'll figure it out. But the point is that there's some degree of flexibility and a little bit of difficulty looking out ahead and knowing when you're conflicted. So I suggest that we allow this to be adopted. But Kelly, I'd like to make a note that we should put a note in here for February that we want to have the retreat. We had some difficulty scheduling the retreat of the board this year. And I think if we get it on the calendar.
Yeah, these are official meetings. The retreat is not an official meeting. That's why it wouldn't be noted on there.
That's fine, but if we could get some spade work done in terms of people's schedules now, rather than after the holidays, we'll have an easier time getting that reserved for everyone in February. So we can do that offline.
Yep.
Okay. So let's, unless anyone has an objection to the proposed, let's just take a quick vote on that. A motion in favor of adopting the schedule of board meetings for the next year. Thanks, Cameron.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's adopted. As far as the chair report, I think I can move through rather briskly here. Just wish everyone a lovely upcoming Independence Day holiday weekend or a long weekend. Safe travels to anyone who may be going out of town. We have a meeting scheduled right after the weekend with the county executive, Dr. Sagai, and I, and his chief of staff and others who come in from the county. We'll be discussing a number of issues as we always do. I mentioned that the budget has been approved by the county legislature, and Len clarified exactly what was behind the vote there. And I do recall that on that fee, there was a reason that we didn't think it impacted the students that much. And it might have been that it was covered, or that it was for students already here. It definitely was not an application fee, and there was a rationale, maybe someone else remembers it, exactly why we let that fee
I had the
go through.
impression from just reading about the legislative meeting that they thought it was a registration fee and imposed for all students or a lot of students. And it's a relatively small number, I think.
It is, but they were worried that it hurt enrollment or
I think it's 12,000
preventative error. But
bucks.
we talked about that at the table, and we were all okay with what that fee going forward. Dr. Sagan and I went to a capital projects workshop that the county executive himself chaired at the Rath Building, and I think Kathy was there, and Arda.
And Bob.
Oh, yes, and Paul Daniel made the presentation.
Yes, and
So
Bob.
there were quite a few of us there, and we talked about a variety of capital projects, and I don't think there was anything of great controversy that comes out. We have a number of capital projects either happening or in the planning stage or in the discussion stage at all times, and this is a process at the county level where they are creating their capital budget for the upcoming 2024 calendar year county budget, and we're part of that.
Is there any clarification about what Amherst is doing with our project over here? The Amherst was objecting.
Yeah, I haven't had that discussion yet, but I'm going to.
Right, and we'll
I'll
be
be
talking
talking
to
to
the county
Vic.
executive and the team on Thursday about that. Because it is a little unclear exactly where
Yeah,
people are.
I'll have some
right now.
information by
Yeah.
next week.
That's sort of in process and on the table, but
Okay.
not yet ready to report on it. The College Senate met, and effectively, as it always does, and I tuned in for a good part of that. One thing I wanted to quick mention, just by way of discussion, we after last meeting, we got some communications, one or two things from some folks who took issue with some discussion that we had at the Board of Trustee table about a particular program, and it doesn't matter which one it is. It just it prompts me to say, though, that I think we should always maintain an attitude here at the board table that we have free and without restriction ability to comment on matters that are important to us, things that we've heard and seen in the community, whether or not they're accurate. We obviously want to bring to that a filter that we can. We're thoughtful people, and we don't want to just bring things to the table that have absolutely no basis or are unimportant. But if someone who's been appointed by the governor or the county executive has something in mind to talk about at this table, my philosophy will always be that that should be discussed. And if folks don't like a particular fact that's been discussed or an opinion that's been brought forward, there's lots of ways to handle that very constructively. And one of them is to say, I disagree with that. I don't think that's accurate. Let me correct that situation. And we're totally open to that. I just don't want there to be a chilling effect here at the table, because the type of conversation we had today was very helpful to me, to all of us. So I just want to encourage everyone here in the room, at this table and around the side, to speak freely, be thoughtful and grounded in your remarks. Do not be frivolous. But if you're following those guideposts, I think it's perfectly fine to bring forward matters of concern. And then to the extent people want to broaden the discussion or the dialogue after that, that's perfectly fine. And we'll figure out ways that happens. So I just wanted to make that broad comment in response to some things that have come up about discussion at our last meeting. I would like to mention or ask Dr. Sagai to speak. June is Pride Month, and the community is really engaging. And I just wanted to talk about the parade and where we were with that, and how the college community has handled Pride Month here in June.
Absolutely, and I could ask Eric to assist with that too. But the college, and one of the things you'll see is that the college is definitely present. Whether it's myself, whether it's the board, whether it's our staff and faculty, we're definitely present in the community. And you'll see that with all the marketing and the social media that we're doing. We're taking a lot of pictures, I tell you that. And you'll see that. And part of it is the Juneteenth Festival. Our college was fully present. This is something that the college has done traditionally. So our admission staff, we set a table. We were in the community tent. So we were present. We were there the entire days that the parade. We're very proud to be part of that. the Juneteenth or other parade. So the college was definitely represented at the Juneteenth festival and many other events and throughout the community. So we definitely are, present, but not only present, we're following through some of those things that we also are telling folks that we're going to do. So we were definitely there.
It's nice to see the degree of engagement, not just at the college, but community-wide.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasant thing in the last few years. I'd like to thank Dr. Casey Crable for her continuing engagement with our officer in charge, Dr. Sagai, and with the Board of Trustees. She's offered us her thoughts at our annual retreat and in other occasions in between, individually and collectively, and we'll have another opportunity with her actually today. So we're just grateful for her mentorship here at the college as we work through a number of issues. I'm going to mention too the ad hoc search committee report here with co-chair Melody Baker. Melody and I are chairing the search committee for a new college permanent president, and we have a lot of good news to report on that front. The search has, as you know, been initiated several months ago. AGB Search is assisting us on a very cost-effective basis with this search. And we've completed the profile for the college that forms the basis for people applying for the job and us evaluating applicants. We've had two long meetings of the committee already, an introductory meeting where about 24 people gathered, a number of whom are at the table here or around the edge of the room. It's a tremendously diverse and thoughtful committee. I'm very, very pleased with the makeup of it. And when we had just 2 days ago our first real long meeting, we had Chancellor John King join us personally. He was remote, but he tuned in to our search committee meeting to give us his charge, his thoughts, and to be introduced to our committee. So he's gained a good impression, I think, already of the thoughtfulness of the group, the diversity of the group, and the general approach that we are taking. That was over 3 hours, that meeting, and we went through and had a good session where AGB Search led us through all the issues associated with implicit bias and overt bias and other issues that could affect our decision making. So what we're trying to do is have a very transparent, thoughtful search that will yield a tremendous permanent candidate for this institution. And while that search is very important, it's also, whenever we talk about the search, important, I think, for we as trustees to continue to empower and endorse what is happening here with Dr. Sagai as our officer in charge and the senior executive staff working with Dr. Sagai every day, and everyone else at the college. The existence of a corporate search or a presidential search is not a reason for anything to grind to a halt. It's not a reason for initiatives like the strategic plan to be paused or slowed down. Things have to happen, and these things can happen in parallel, and they are happening in a way that I think all the trustees are quite comfortable with. In the meantime, the trustees make decisions, and we have an officer in charge, and we're all set. So those are my thoughts. Melody, would you like to give yours?
Jeff, I have nothing to add. I mean, you've been a tremendous leader in your comments. I just second them, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that search and what we have going now and where this is going for the college. I can just feel the positive momentum surrounding what we're doing. And I was really delighted that the chancellor took that personal interest. I said to him when he joined us, "You've become a good friend." Mm-hmm. Remember, he was here for one of his visits. He spent an entire day with us, went to Northland, met all of us. And then he came, importantly, on May 14th as well, that weekend, and was here in a real, very present kind of way, and a number of places with people from community college, our Erie community. So kudos to John King. Last quick item, and this can segue right to you, Dr. Sagai, is I wanted to mention our tour of Northtown. Dr. Sagai and Stephen Tucker and I met with the Bill, the director of operations, essentially, at Northtown, who is a big fan of Erie Community College and people here, and he is he gives full-throated endorsement to what we're doing in the auto tech area. He showed with pride the entire classroom situation, toured all the Northtown over on Millersport, I think it was, and we had a great day. So with that, my report is through. I'll turn it over to you to continue.
Eric, do you want to do enrollment real quick? Please.
So on the screen, we have what's going to very likely be quite close to what we call our end of term enrollment for spring of 2023. I believe the official Cirrus one is July 1, so it's coming up soon. 15th. So in a few weeks, I don't expect it to deviate too much from this year based on our past practices in collaborating with this office and IREP. But at this point in time, overall for the spring semester, looking at about 2% down, which is very consistent with what we saw for the fall semester as well, which was actually, I think, a year in which Kathy highlighted, over 13,000 students that we serve, which is both credit and non-credit, is a really tremendous reflection on the impact that we have at the institution here and the lives and the people within our community, and was a relatively stable state of enrollment for this academic year. There still is, and you saw it with the strategic plan that Kathy and others highlighted, is the opportunity with regards to how we address our student success and retention and persistence and what we need to do to invest in that enrollment reality, which is, as you look down at the figure here, you see a relatively stabilization. In fact, if you look 2 years out compared to new students, a slight actually elevation in new students here for the spring semesters, as well as then our advanced studies, which we call our concurrent enrollment in the high school. The greatest opportunity certainly lies in how we evaluate our continuation of students and student success. And I think that'll then still continue into how the budget was created for the 23-24 academic year as well. Down below that, we see summer. Summer is trending pretty consistent with where we were last year. And I'm working closely with ARDA in terms of how that is projected to budget, and so we've made some readjustments there. But currently at this point in time, in terms of full-time equivalency, slightly ahead of where we were compared to then this point in time last year. And then lastly, is with regards to fall. So fall, this time of year is really probably the busiest and the biggest emphasis in terms of how we make sure in our community that students are aware that we exist, the community knows that we exist, and we're here, proud and really honored to serve our students. So as Dr. Sagai highlighted, our admissions team is actively involved in the community. We were present in Juneteenth over the weekend. We also just hosted our Say Yes kickoff event at City Campus this last week, a few days ago. That was an opportunity for all of the Buffalo public school residents to participate. So it wasn't just us, it was all the schools, to really showcase our institution. And a big credit to Kelly and the admissions team, our Say Yes team, Courtney and Booker, who really did a remarkable job of working with our Say Yes team to make that event a success with over 200 students that were there on that day.
Eric, can you speak to middle college graduation?
Yeah, we also hosted the Middle Early College, which is our partnership with Bennett High School and students who participate on our campus. And thanks to Mr. Potter and also the team, so Terry, as well as Tanika and others, where we were able to pivot from, typically we'd hold it in the atrium at the city campus, but due to the snowstorm, we pivoted and had it at the gymnasium at the Flickinger Center. And honestly, the feedback was, we might like this better. The way that it was organized by having the podium on there, the student chairs, and then the rafters, the seating, where the parents were able to be, felt very reminiscent of what we do with our own graduation at Buffalo State University. And we may actually take this as an opportunity to evaluate how we move forward. But again, being in the community, showcasing our institution, and demonstrating that we're active, we're present, is a really core tenet to us, the marketing team, and how we do everything that we do in this department. So in terms of fall, this is our biggest push. What you see here visually is our enrollment at this point in time compared to where we were last year. And the first two dotted lines that are elevated blue reflects where we were for our continuing students at this point in time, and then the slightly darker red, I know you can't see it here, as easily as our continuing students for fall. So we are trending slightly behind where we were at this point in time, with hopefully then a strong push as we collaborate closely with academics, student services, of how do we get these students registered for the upcoming semester. Down below, you see that the new students, the deviation there isn't as drastic, but still focused on how do we make sure that our first-time students are coming here as well. The data is down below in terms of seeing where we are, but the main thing is the applications are ahead of where we were at this point in time last year. So a big attribute to Ken, the Martin Group. We're actually able now to, in real time, look at the data of where we're getting the greatest inquiries and activity and pivot. So just recently, we adjusted some of our digital strategies to reflect and invest more in, interestingly enough, Snapchat had the greatest activity compared to things like Facebook as well as Instagram. So we adjusted our resources to make the biggest bang for our buck, and we're seeing that here. Currently at this point in time, compared to when I had submitted this report, we're up to 6,821 applications. So that already has jumped up from last week by quite a few hundred at this point in time. And down below you can then see just the visual of where we are compared to previous years. The red indicates where we are at this point in time compared to years prior. So our applications as well as admitted is higher. So the overall institution, our focus at this point in time has to be, how do we get these students enrolled and prepared for success as early as possible for the fall semester?
So part of what we're doing is looking at the other side, right? So we have the enrollment focus, student affair. I'm going to have Colleen just mention a couple of things that we're doing in the student affair side of the house. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
I would love to talk about the most important people in the building. Some initiatives we're putting together for our students, our treasured students. I think I mentioned before we have an online orientation. In addition, we're going to be having in August in-person orientations at each of our campuses. We've already got registrations coming in, 130 at North and City, and around 40 at South so far. A lot more pushing going on, but very robust, very exciting. We're going to have student panels, faculty panels, lots of information that supplements our online, but we're also going to bring in DJ Hassan, who our culture club referred us, and he's going to provide some music. We're going to have Adriana Viverette, who is a go-getter. She's a DJ on WBLK. She's going to be an inspirational speaker to our students. So we're going to bring our new students in a very exciting way, so that when they leave that orientation, they are so happy they chose SUNY Erie to come to. Next week, we're going to be doing our training for our new student government officers and our new trustees. We're going to have 2 days of training. Our students are going to, we're going to obviously go through policies and procedures, but we're also bringing in some speakers. And for example, Althea Learson is the CEO of Leadership Buffalo. She's going to do strength finders with our new officers and come in and actually go through everything with the students and explain their pluses or strengths and weaknesses. Myself and Jason, the Dean of Students, we're taking it as well, so we'll find out what we're all about. We're also bringing in Mr. Will Green. He's going to speak to our students. He's been very active in the community, but also worked at Say Yes. He now works at UB. He's going to talk to our students about engaging other students, about just how to get your message out. Just really exciting speaker. Really look forward to that. And then I'll just touch on, I know we're at a time, so last initiative going on, there's more, but let me just tell you about this. We're going to be doing some professional development for our student service professionals, the people who serve our students. Bringing in Mr. Kenya Hobbs, if you know him, well known, okay, amazing gentleman who, this is going to be phase one. I'm hoping to, well, we're going to work together on many more initiatives, but we're going to start it in July with some professional development training. We're going to start with creating a welcoming and inclusive environment through exceptional student services. Not that we don't already know how to do that, but it's so good to be refreshed and reminded by an expert in the field. I have more to say.
That's good. Thank you. And just to note, Ken, this is done by grant funded, so we are using grant that's funded to this. So we're very conscious about that. So exciting news. Thank you.
Thank you.
Super excited.
Part of what we're going to do on the academic side, and that report will happen next meeting with our board is really to talk about the advisement side, which is on the faculty side. So myself and Adrienne with the academic dean are going to be meeting now to talk about retention by program and persistent and graduation by program. So that's a big piece that we have, so we'll report that out on the next meeting. Bob, if you don't mind, if you could share the pictures. I think pictures says a lot. So with the time that I have, I think the pictures will demonstrate, as I mentioned, that we are definitely present. This is one of our asset program. This is a graduation class that we attended. Now, this is a little bit different than the West Her. This is where all the dealers in Western New York and to some degree in Rochester. So our students graduated there. So we did a ceremony for our students and their families. So they were all there and graduated. Now, let me just point out, all those students have a job and doing really well by way of salary, let me say. So those programs are real, and those programs are very successful at our college. So that's that. And then this other initiative. This is done by the culinary team. This is Earn to Learn, a new initiative that we're starting for the fall semester. We are going to pilot this initiative, having about 10 to 12 students. Here you see they invited all the hospitality partners within Western New York to be partners in that. So basically what this will mean is that students will be in that program but simultaneously work in the field, so that by the time they get done and get paid as they're working, because one of the things that the department noticed is that our students were choosing between work and education. And so what we did here is really be able to do both of the learn and as well as our earn. And then, as you can see, Chairmanwoman April Bassett, I know Lynn Lenahan was with me. This is the groundbreaking for the Bill Stadium at the stadium. Next slide. And this is, I know we talked a little bit about this. This is the breakfast Hispanic heritage that we all attended. I got to tell you, there was 10 of us, faculty and staff included. And then Dr. Rosa Gonzalez was the person that was being honored there. And here you see Eric was interviewing with Channel 4 in terms of the admit, that was the SUNY initiative where direct admit, the chancellor headed, and that was part of the conversation. They wanted to see where SUNY Erie stood on there. So lastly, this is just to update you in terms of facility at the city campus. We are going to be at the city campus instruction first with faculty August 1st. That is where, and we're moving along. But I thought this was important. This is the Lakeview construction team. Every single one of those students graduated from our construction program. So I thought this was neat when I found out that all of them graduated from the college. I thought we showcased that not only our students are out there, but they're coming to fix our building. So
should go back to show some love.
right? Don't you? Right. And so yes, so the city is on track and being open on August 1st. We are doing some work at the South Campus by way of really trying to streamline process as well as condense the building that we're in, so that we really could have that intimate services for our students, both on the instruction side as well as the service side of the support that our students need. So we're doing a lot of work at South. We're doing a lot of work here as well at North. So part of the idea here is to make sure not only are we providing academic, but making sure the atmosphere, as Kathy talked a lot about, how do we make sure that with what we have to make sure that it's conducive for our students and they are highly engaged both in and outside the classroom. So I know we have a lot. One more I think it's worth noting. We did meet with Chairwoman April Bassett about the Level Up program, and just if I could remind everyone, the Level Up is an initiative to help minority-owned businesses to participate in the building in the Buffalo Stadium. I believe she indicated there are 48 businesses that are going to be participating in that program. And the role of SUNY Erie will be to be able to provide training, both credit and non-credit. So our business and culinary folks were able to present a program by way of micro-credential or a certificate program to Chairwoman and the team. So we presented to her, and so the intention is to do a pilot for fall. So we're going to pilot a few students in the fall for them to enroll so that we could be instrumental in supporting the Level Up program for the community. So Yeah, so was that quick?
That's a good
Excellent.
Yes,
collaboration
there you go.
So good.
with the,
That was great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the Erie County Legislature and the chairwoman. there.
Absolutely,
Very good.
absolutely.
All right, thank you. So, all set?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Cameron Lloyd, our student trustee report.
I actually don't have anything to report for you guys this week.
Well, there's been a lot of discussion.
I know.
with these
And
things.
then Colleen, she actually did kind of cover what I was going to tell you guys. Just the SGA training next week
Yes.
for the 2 days.
Excellent.
So,
Cameron, one thing that we can talk about offline after the meeting is we
Mhm.
want to get you engaged in the committees that you feel you'd be most effective on.
okay.
And we can look at the list together afterwards as a group and figure out where that makes sense. Okay. And now Colleen, I did not notice Colleen, did I? No. So I don't know if we have a student senate report. I did attend remotely the senate as I usually do, and it was a good, solid meeting. I don't recall anything that that I feel I need to report on, and certainly always a good opportunity to say thank you to Colleen Quinn for leading the Senate. I know Colleen was reelected. That's news. So that's good. It remains in very capable hands. Old or new business, either. Okay. As for executive session, I mentioned that we would have one, but I don't think we actually need to in retrospect. We've had a lot of discussion, and the items that I had in mind for the executive session without formal action don't rise to the level of doing this now. So what we will do is reserve the right as the search process goes on to have a special board meeting. I do realize we're in the summer. We've got to be respectful of people being away and so forth. But if the board could kind of stay a little loose, we're going to at some point have meetings to talk about what's coming out of the search process. As for the search and the specifics of it, the last date for applicants to submit is the 20th of July to the search firm. Already applications have come in, and the search committee is able to begin dealing with those and reviewing them. And there's a process in place with a schedule of meetings. And the bottom line is that we think that by about the middle of August, the search committee's work will be done, and the candidates who emerge from that process will be sent to the Board of Trustees. So as board members, if you're thinking about what's happening this summer and where are we with the search, it's most likely that we would want to perhaps convene in late August to assess what has come from the search committee and take action from there. There are two SUNY board meetings that we need to bear in mind. One is on, I think, September 11th, or relatively early in September. The other is late October. If everything falls into place and we've had a process that we're all comfortable with and we could take advantage of the September meeting, great. I wouldn't expect the process to go past the late October meeting of the SUNY board. So that's where I am viewing it right now. Melody, I think you heard those same general points at our meeting, and I think we both share the objective of being very thorough, but also recognizing that it would be good to have a permanent leader, and have the search process be concluded satisfactorily. So we're working toward that. So we will not partake of an executive session. Our next meeting will be on August 17th at 9 a.m., subject to my comment that I will probably be remote unless a business has me back in Buffalo. Melody and I will coordinate offline on that. And at this point, I will take a motion to adjourn, please, with, again, full transparency. We're going to have a training type discussion mentoring type discussion with Casey Crable as a board, but we will not be taking any formal action. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thanks. Second? And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, 11:22. Everyone can take a break.